Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we are diving headfirst into a beautifully cinematic story all about serendipity. We're going to explore a deeply human narrative that perfectly captures how a single, seemingly frustrating moment, like, just missing a train, can completely flip the script on two people's lives. It's honestly a wonderful testament to the quiet magic hiding right there in our everyday routines.
So can one unexpected delay literally change the course of your life? Let's get into this by asking you to reflect on your own life for just a second. Think about those unexpected detours you've dealt with, the missed flights, the flat tires, the sudden change of plans. Usually, we just see these as massive inconveniences, right? But what if those exact moments are actually setting the stage for an incredible chance encounter? That question right there is the emotional anchor for the story we're exploring today. A story about destiny, vulnerability, and the wild things that can happen when we're forced to just stop rushing around, take a breath, and simply wait.
All right, let's kick things off with Section 1, a chance encounter and missing the last train.
Our story starts with our protagonist, Sophia. She's a 22-year-old university student who just had one of those incredibly long, brain-draining days of studying. Picture that heavy sigh of relief as she finally makes it to the platform, only to realize with this sinking dread that she has missed her very last train home. So imagine this freezing, highly detailed atmosphere. Sophia sits down alone on a cold station bench. The world around her is quiet, metallic, and totally still. The air is sharp. But right before she completely resigns herself to a lonely, bitter wait, she notices someone else sharing this isolation. Sitting nearby is a young man named Noah, and he's just quietly sketching in a notebook. Drawn together by this shared, annoying inconvenience, they strike up a conversation just to pass the time in the chilly environment. And honestly, it's a tiny spark of warmth in a very cold place.
And that brings us to Section 2, sharing dreams and fears in a midnight conversation.
Now check out this deep juxtaposition of their internal vulnerabilities. As the night gets darker, the vibe between these two strangers actually warms up a ton. They totally bypass that awkward small talk and just dive right into opening up about their favorite memories and, more importantly, their biggest dreams and fears. On the left, we've got Noah. He reveals that his ultimate dream is to become an artist, but he's weighed down by this massive, crippling fear of failing. He's literally terrified of pouring his soul onto a canvas just to get rejected. Then, on the right, there's Sophia. She dreams of traveling the globe and seeing everything out there, but she's totally anchored by this persistent worry of leaving her family behind. By laying all these intimate details out on the table, it makes total sense why they both felt truly understood for the first time in years. They weren't just killing time, they were sharing the core of who they are. It's that mutual vulnerability that builds this insanely fast, powerful connection between two people who, let's remember, were complete strangers just an hour before.
Looking at the progression of their night really shows how this intimate connection builds in just a matter of hours. We start right at midnight with that initial, super frustrating missed train and their chance meeting. By 2 a.m., they've ditched the trivial chatter and are deep into sharing those profound dreams and fears we just talked about. Then, around 4 a.m., the dynamic shifts again. Now they're laughing together, drinking some warm, probably slightly stale coffee they grabbed from a quiet station cafe, and just watching the distant city lights glow against the dark sky. The pacing here is just incredible. It maps this whole journey from total strangers to kindred spirits in one single, continuous conversation, right up until 6 a.m. when the morning light finally breaks and that first train arrives. It's basically a lifetime of connection packed into a 6-hour window.
As the sun comes up, we move into Section 3, the morning light and a parting gift.
So the physical arrival of that morning train abruptly changes the whole vibe of the story. There's a bittersweet urgency now. Their unexpected night together, this crazy little bubble outside of time, is suddenly ending. And here is where we hit a crucial point, this physical keepsake. Noah does something incredibly vulnerable here. Remember that profound fear of failing as an artist we mentioned earlier? Well, despite that fear, he actually tears a page right out of his personal sketchbook and hands it to Sophia. It's a gorgeous, detailed drawing of her sitting right there on that station bench. It totally captures the soft, romantic lighting of their night together and really cements the bond they've just formed. But more than that, this sketch acts like a tangible bridge between their fleeting, magical night and the cold reality of the regular world they're both about to step back into.
But wait, the exchange doesn't just end there. Right before Sophia boards her train, she takes that beautiful sketch and jots her phone number down on the back of it. This quick exchange is absolutely vital. Along with their shy, hesitant smiles, that phone number is basically a lifeline of hope. The tone here is so deeply bittersweet, right? They're physically going their separate ways, stepping out of this magical midnight bubble and back into their busy, everyday lives.
The warmth of the night really contrasts heavily with the brisk, lonely reality of a morning commute. But that small piece of paper, it holds the immense potential for their narrative to actually continue. It's a tiny, brave leap of faith.
And that brings us to our final act, Section 4, 1 year later and the reunion.
So we fast forward a full year, and the emotional tone of our story shifts from a bittersweet goodbye to this incredibly warm, triumphant realization. Sophia walks into a small, bustling art gallery, and as she navigates through the crowd, there's this palpable sense of anticipation. Why is she there? Well, it's Noah's very first exhibition. This brilliantly shows Noah completely conquering his deep-seated fear of failure. He didn't let those old doubts stop him from pursuing his art and really putting himself out there. As Sophia explores the gallery, taking in the pieces, she turns a corner and spots it. The exact drawing he made of her that night at the freezing train station is hanging proudly on the wall, framed for the whole world to see. It goes to show those shared dreams and midnight conversations didn't just fade away on a cold platform, they actually manifested into reality.
Which brings us to the heartwarming climax. From across the crowded room, Noah turns and spots Sophia. That deep connection they built a year ago hasn't faded at all. Honestly, the realization that they both followed through on their promises has only made it stronger. They share this knowing smile, which leads to a deeply emotional embrace right there in the middle of the gallery. And the story wraps up perfectly with the two of them walking out of the exhibition and into the sunset together. It's such a beautifully cinematic resolution, and we really need to linger on what this means for a second. This grand romantic sunset, this total fulfillment of their dreams, none of it would have happened if it weren't for a frustrating, freezing, missed train a year prior.
To wrap up this explainer, we're turning the lens back to you. We've just seen how Sophia and Noah's lives were completely transformed by a simple delay and a willingness to be totally vulnerable with a stranger. So I really want you to keep this in mind. The next time you miss your train, or a flight gets delayed, or your perfectly laid out plans just completely fall apart, look around. Who might you meet while you wait? What unexpected detour could turn out to be the very beginning of your own beautiful story? Thanks for joining me for this explainer today, and remember, always keep embracing the unexpected.